Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Molten Music Technology. This is the first in what I hope will be a new series of videos, of informational, fascinating videos all about what it is that's best in music technology, in synthesizers and software, in audio interfaces and production tools, all of the stuff that we need to make and realize the music of our souls. This first episode is about the best free DAWs, the best free digital audio workstations. And if you want to skip directly to what I think about that, then use the chapter headings in the description, because I just wanted to give a slightly longer introduction, as this is the first in this series, just to explain what it is that I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and why you can trust me. Yeah, because we all look for products on the internet. We all Google what's the best food processor, what's the best pair of jeans, what's the best pair of trainers, what's the best guitar, so on and so forth. And we are treated to a long list of possible destinations and articles that tell us all about these things. And kind of uniformly, at least in my experience, they tend to be a bit, how should I put it? A little bit light on the detail, light on what you would consider to be authority or good information. They tend to be pointing you towards affiliate links, Amazon wish lists of stuff so that they can make money off your purchases, while offering up just meager little uninformed bits of information about the products that they're talking about. And so best of lists tend to be, not always of course, but tend to feel a bit clickbaity and only of kind of mild help at the end of the day. So why would this be any different? Why would I be any different at this? Well, a few years ago I got asked by a website called Careers in Music to start working up some articles for their site, some new content in the gear and software part of their website, and this essentially meant writing best of articles. Now, I wasn't thrilled by the idea of doing that, but it was good work and they were nice people, and I thought, I'll give it a go. And as it turns out, Careers in Music don't have any sponsors to speak of. They don't have any affiliates, they don't publish affiliate links, they're not trying to get you to buy anything. They just want to provide good information and provide a resource for people who are looking to do music as a career. And so they gave me the opportunity to write these articles about all of this gear with no agenda, with no one pushing me towards any particular products or any particular highlights, and I was completely free to use my own experience to come up with a list of things that I thought were worth looking at. Sorry about the cockerel. Sorry about the guy mowing the lawn. It's just what we have to cope with in the reality of my space here. So what is it that gives me any kind of authority? Well, it's difficult to say, but let me pitch this at you. I've been working in this industry for nearly 30 years. I've been working on the shop floor. I've run companies producing computers for audio production. I've sold studios to people. I've set up systems for people. I've been writing for Sound on Sound magazine for many years, and I review synthesizers, software and music technology products on this channel. So I've been in the business a long time, and I've formed opinions on what it is that's good. That doesn't mean I've used every product in the world and have sat everything side by side to do comparisons. No, in this I am literally sharing my opinion on what I view to be good and pointing out what I think is good and is going to do a good job at providing you with the tools that you need for the music you're trying to make. That is really all the authority I can bring to this, and I hope that that is useful. I hope, if nothing else, it is honest and authentic and pushes you down the road towards making the decision that you want to make. And so after writing and updating and continually updating these articles for Careers in Music, as I have over many years, I thought that it would be good to do a video version, a version where I'm most comfortable, which is here talking to camera, talking a load of waffle and nonsense about bits of gear that I enjoy. And I thought that might be a great way of expanding upon the articles in Careers in Music, and to allow me to elaborate a little bit and to share my enthusiasm for all of these sorts of products. So this first article, this first video I'm doing is best free DAWs. I'm going to follow that up with best paid for DAWs, and then probably something about synthesizers, software synthesizers, plugins, audio interfaces, so on and so on. We'll see how far we get. I'll try, or aiming to do one a month, I suppose, to build that up, and then I'll update them every 6 months or whenever it appears to be appropriate. That's the plan. That's the plan. But stick with me, subscribe, and you'll find that I do videos on all sorts of interesting things. Eurorack, this sort of stuff, something I particularly really enjoy doing. There'll be plenty of stuff on making music, on how to use this stuff and what products are great, but also other synthesizers, other bits of software, DAWs, and all sorts of stuff I end up reviewing and talking about. I do a monthly news bulletin video, if you like, which covers all of the latest releases and what I think is interesting going on there. And I also do live streams where we can get to chat and talk to each other. So think about subscribing, hitting all those bells and buttons. And also I have a Patreon account if you want to support me properly, because no one's paying me to do this. Now, I do have some affiliate links down in the description, both for places like Thomann and also Perfect Circuit. So if you do want to support me, if you click on those links and buy something, then I get a tiny kickback. But it doesn't matter what product, it's just whatever it is that you buy, I get the tiniest little slither, and that's very, very useful in supporting the channel, supporting what I do, and helping me to make more and more videos. It's all happening this morning over here in the shed. Anyway, that's the pitch, that's the idea. Take it or leave it as you like. And so we'll move on now to the best free DAWs. So is it really possible to make music on your computer for free? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. Can you record bands onto your computer for free? Yes, you can. Can you make banging electronic music? Yes. Hip hop? Yes. Grime, EDM, folk music, compose symphonies? Yes, yes. All of that you can do absolutely for free with free software. It is entirely possible. It may not be the ultimate environment or studio expression, but heck, you can do an awful lot. And nowadays there are even a couple of free DAWs which are fully fledged studios. You don't have to pay a penny. It's a reality, it's interesting, it makes you wonder how other DAWs actually still continue to survive in the face of what is extraordinary power and software capability that is out there for nothing these days. However, as always, if we want these things to continue, then we should ultimately pay for them, because nothing can be made in a vacuum, nothing can be made out of thin air. And so it's always great that if you really like a piece of software, to support them by buying the extras or the extra plugins or the next version and those sorts of things in order to continue these things going. And besides, if you're enjoying something, if you're making music and realizing your creative dreams, then that's worth a little bit of investment. But before we get there, let's focus on the free DAWs. So these will cost you nothing. Often there are higher versions you can upgrade to. Often these are cut down and have hardly any features that you're going to need. But I've pulled out the ones that I believe to be honestly useful, helpful, and that you can make music right now for nothing with. I should point out that there's one particular favourite DAW that everyone mentions, which is Reaper, that people tend to believe is free. And it isn't. It costs you $60, $60 to use if you want to continue using it. Now, you can evaluate it for as long as you like, which is why people kind of think that it's free, but it's not. So, because of that, Reaper does not appear in this list, but it's always worth mentioning because it's a flipping good DAW. But that aside, let's get on with my list. So the first one on my list is Luna from Universal Audio. Now, the numbering of my list isn't necessarily important. I'm not saying that number 1 is the best and number 8, because I have 8 in my list. Why? Who knows? Somebody once said that 8 is the optimum number for Google search and that kind of thing, and so we do 8. We do best ofs featuring 8 products. But as I say, there's no particular order to this because they are different, and different people will find different ones more applicable to their situation. Luna has been around a few years. It came out on Mac OS only a few years ago and is essentially a recording environment to go along with Universal Audio hardware and its plugins. Originally it was tied to their hardware, so you had to buy a Universal Audio interface or DSP platform in order to run the Luna DAW. That's no longer the case, and there's now a Windows version. So it's free pretty much to everyone. In a nutshell, Luna is what you would call an old school vintage studio. It's a massive console that's based on all of this analog emulation technology, because Universal Audio makes some extraordinarily good analog style plugins. So they take old consoles and old bits of audio gear and they model them and create plugins of them and capture that sound so that all of your audio running through your computer gets coloured and saturated by this wonderful vibe and feeling of going through analog gear. It really is quite extraordinary, noticeably different to a lot of other DAWs that can sound very, very clean. And so what Luna offers is an unlimited MIDI and audio track count of recording and editing directly on the timeline, and mixing through some fantastic sounding console and channel strip plugins, as well as adding tape saturation in a couple of different ways. So the result you get in recording with Luna is a very vibey analog sound. It's brilliant for bands, brilliant if you're working with live instruments and things like that. Its particular forte, I think, is with recording and mixing live sound, live vocals, live instruments and all that sort of thing. If you are a bit more into, say, EDM or electronic music, then perhaps this doesn't have all of the tools that you might find in other bits of software. The MIDI side of it is relatively simple. It has a piano roll directly on the timeline that you can zoom into and edit notes and bits and pieces. It has a really interesting arpeggiator, funnily enough, which is pretty groovy, and it comes with a massive sampled instrument that's got 4 layers that you can layer up into these big multi sounds that you can use directly within Luna, absolutely for free. And so overall, I think the vibe of Luna is that it is perfectly brilliant at being an audio recording platform. It can do some MIDI and some arranging and mixing, and at the end of the day you're going to get a fabulous sounding mix out of it. I would suggest that you might need to know what you're doing. I mean, a lot of the stuff in terms of console and channel strip, you've got EQ, you've got dynamics and compressors, limiters, processing, that sort of thing. You kind of have to have a certain amount of knowledge to really get the best out of it, because it's not going to treat you like an idiot. Not going to treat you like a beginner necessarily. On the other hand, it does come with a lot of really useful presets. So even if you don't really know what you're doing, you can dial up a couple of different things and it will sound half decent. It will glue things together for you. But perhaps if you're a beginner, then I would say that Luna's a little bit aspirational. I mean, give it a go, because heck, it's free. So give it a go and see what you think. But you may find some of the other offerings on this list a little bit easier to cope with. I mean, ultimately, Luna is there to sell you Universal Audio plugins. That's what it wants you to do, because they have a massive range of fabulous sounding plugins. And what they want is for you to get into Luna and then start introducing some of their bundle packs and bits and pieces into your set. However, it also supports VST plugins and AU plugins on the Mac. So you can put in any of third-party plugins that you already use, any effects or virtual instruments from anywhere else can also be used directly within Luna for free. And that's pretty unusual, or at least it has been unusual until recently, because VST plugin support tends to be one of those things which you only get in a paid version. Not anymore. Luna has it absolutely built in. So that's a major deal. It also looks fantastic. Which is no bad thing when you're dealing with music and creativity. Next up we have Tracktion Waveform free. Now, Tracktion have been making DAWs for a long time. I think, if I remember rightly, back in the day, the team that created the first version actually came from Steinberg Cubase. They were programmers from there that sort of decided to break free and do their own thing. So it's been decent for a good long time. In more recent years, it's really elevated itself to the point where it should be in anyone's top 5, I think. Yeah, I think definitely. And one of the things that they decided to do a few versions ago is to release an older version for free. So when they get to release a brand new version with new features and new fantastic bits going on, a couple of versions back, they release an older version absolutely for free. And it's the complete, full version that used to be their flagship version just a few years ago. And so in Waveform 3 you get a fully fledged, fully formed, completely compatible DAW which will do everything. Audio recording, MIDI recording, VST instruments, VST plugins and AU plugins, mixing, mastering, all of that creativity is there for free. It just doesn't have the absolute latest version of things that they have in their top flight paid for version. Waveform on the whole is, I would say, it's a little bit more difficult than most to get into. It has a different way of working. It has a very interesting and detailed way of working, but that just sometimes makes it a little bit more of a steeper learning curve to get into it. One of the things that I really like is its focus on the clip in your arrange page. So every clip has all sorts of tools and processes that you can apply to it. You click on a clip, whether it's MIDI or audio, and you get all this information down the bottom about what it is and what it can do, and then you've got all these transforms and changes and effects and processes you can apply to that clip, and that can be everything from randomization to changes in volume or intensity or slicing it up or chopping it up or mixing it about. It's really, really interesting. They've also got a modulation engine inside where you can take an LFO from like a bucket of LFOs, throw it onto things so that stuff moves about by itself. It's like automation, but rather than having to draw everything in yourself, you take these modulators and they do it essentially for you. It's a brilliant feature. Another great feature is it has quite an intense sort of plug-in map or network where you can connect plugins and processes up together to create these huge sort of fields of processing. You can do that to create interesting instruments or interesting networks of plugins. Just really fascinating. It has a different way of working to most other things, and that brings with it a lot of creativity and a lot of interesting ways of approaching your sound creation. So where Luna is sort of a blank page into which you create everything, Waveform has that, but also has endless tools inside for generating and creating content all by itself. And just because it has a bit more of a learning curve, don't be afraid to give it a go. Studio One Prime. Now this, not long ago, I would have said is absolutely the best way to go. Because Studio One, I'm quite a fan of Studio One. I use it all the time. I write articles about it. So I know it quite intimately. And Studio One Prime is like the entry version in. It gives you a load of stuff. It gives you the environment, the mixing and editing that starts to get you familiar with the way that Studio One works. Because Studio One has a really nice workflow, really easy going, smooth way into everything. How everything works together and pulls together on this single sort of page is really quite elegant, and Prime is the way into that. However, in light of things like Luna and Waveform, it's tending to feel a little bit light in the feature department. Now, don't get me wrong, you can record your band into it, you can do MIDI recording and MIDI editing. It's got a lot of great tools in there to allow you to do that, a lot of great content in virtual instruments and samples and bits and pieces that are in there that allows you to really start to flesh out the idea of songwriting and making music within Studio One. But it is limited, and I would say too limited these days. It doesn't support VST plugins. It doesn't have all the pattern editing and MIDI processing that the full version has. So while it's a really great place to start and it's easy to use and you can get on with it, it is hampered, I think, now by its lack of facilities. The other thing is that when you install it for the first time, you are kind of forced into a trial of the big version. So everything gets installed. You go, oh wow, this is fantastic, all these tools, all these fabulous things. But when you get to the end of your 30-day trial or whatever, all of those things sort of disappear and you're left with this quite disappointingly simple piece of software. Now it's in my list still because it is a great introduction to Studio One. And because Studio One is such an awesome DAW, then it's if you're looking to start with something and then upgrade in the future, then Studio One Prime is a great place to give that a go. I love Zenbeats. I think it's a fantastic piece of software. I've been a follower of Zenbeats for years, even before it was called Zenbeats. It was by another company called Stagelight, I think it was, and it was great. It was great because it's a very touchable piece of software. Now, most touchable software is on the iPad, but personally I find the iPad quite restrictive, and in terms of this video talking about the best free DAW, I'm talking about running on normal desktop computers. However, Zenbeats, as it is now, is very touchable, but is available on absolutely every platform. So if you have a hybrid touchscreen laptop, for instance, or a Microsoft Surface, or an iPad, you can use it on all of those platforms. It's very, very touchy. Everything about it allows you to get your fingers in there to control things, to launch clips, to get tracks going, that kind of thing. And it has a wonderfully futuristic feel and interface to it. It's a lot of fun and will get you making music in no time at all. The free version is a little bit cut down, but funnily enough, moving to the paid version doesn't cost very much. But sticking with the free version, you get essentially a clip launching view. So you record into these different cells on the screen, or whether that's MIDI from a keyboard, or guitar or singing or whatever, and then you can arrange with those and fire them off at different times and get these entire loop arrangements going. So it's very loop based. The full version also allows you to play on the timeline, which gives you a much bigger place to arrange your music, much like you would in a more traditional DAW. Sadly, it doesn't have plugin support in the free version. That's something that you can, as I say, throw a few dollars at it and you can get that kind of support. But it also comes with a built-in shop that wants to sell you acres and acres of samples and loops that you can just drag straight in and start making music. It's so simple, so easy to use, very, very engaging, colourful, fantastic. It has a great pattern-based drum machine, so you can just tap in patterns, hit buttons, patterns, that kind of thing. It's got a lot of Roland content in there with 808 and 909 samples, that kind of thing. And it has a built-in sampler and also the starting off of a Zencore synthesizer, which again you can expand with more and more content. It's starting to really pull in all of the stuff that Roland now does in software, which is quite an extraordinary library of sounds and vintage stuff and vintage synths and historical awesomeness. And as I say, the cross-platform nature of it means that you can literally start a project on your phone, start working up some beats and bits and pieces, and then take that home and plug it into your laptop and then add some vocals to that. Take it to your mate's house on his iPad, add some guitar or some other bits and mixes and jiggery pokery, and all the time you can swap and change and move your project from one platform to another. There's nothing else, I don't think, that does that quite so well. And it's a phenomenally useful feature if you're working with other people, or you want to make music on the go and in different places and then consolidate it all back in one place. MPC Beats, it comes from Akai, the people behind the MPC sampler workstation of the 90s and noughties. Those fantastic, great big pad-laden machines into which you could bash out your beats. Fantastic. This is the DAW version of that. And what's good about it is that it has the same sort of workflow. It has this idea that you are going to be using samples. It comes with a massive library of fantastic sounding kits and hits and loops and bits and pieces. And you can bash those out, either on a touchscreen or on a keyboard and start producing great beats, great workflows of arrangements and patterns and stuff going on. It's quite detailed, it's quite extraordinary. You can get into some depth in the editing and precisely where it is you want to put every single hit and every single strike and melody. It comes with a couple of virtual instruments to get you going, but it also supports VST plugins and instruments, so you can expand it with whatever else you can find. Free ones, paid ones, whatever it is, can all work directly within MPC Beats to expand the sound palette and to push it out into all sorts of different directions. The downside of MPC Beats is that it only supports 2 channels of audio recording, which seems a bit mean, to be honest. I mean, its focus is evidently on creating huge MIDI tracks based on, as I say, instruments and samples and bits and pieces. And then to that you would perhaps add a vocal line or a vocal and a harmony, and those are your 2 audio tracks. So it is definitely a restriction, but it depends on the sort of music that you're making. If you're not likely to be recording live instruments, then that doesn't really matter. And there is enough, just enough there to add a vocal line or 2, or a guitar solo, you know, whatever, harmonica solo, whatever it is you want to add is completely fine. It comes with like 80 plugins as well as being expandable into other things. So it's got a lot of great stuff going on inside itself already. I would say the interface is a bit fiddly. It's a bit small on the screen, which is a shame. It could do with kind of folding itself out a little bit more just to give it a better sense of space. But otherwise, for an MPC workflow, for that kind of sample-based music making, it's really, really great. Bandlab does things a little bit differently. This is kind of a weird one because it's an online DAW. The whole thing exists online, in the cloud. And so that is where you're making your music. It's free, it's unlimited, it has masses of space for you to record into, masses of MIDI editing tools. It has hundreds of virtual instruments for you to use and great bits of sample library and effects and plugins. It has great guitar amp sounding stuff, great vocal processing and real-time pitch correction, you know, a lot of great stuff. And it's all there for free online, which means again you can access it from anywhere, any computer, any device that can get on the internet into a browser. You can access the software, which is different but similar to Zenbeats. It has this collaborative idea built in where you can invite other Bandlab users into your project so they can add bits to it, or do a vocal line for you, or mix for you, or add this, that and the other, or you can just work together on stuff very, very easily. And that, I think, is perhaps its greatest strength. However, there are some difficulties because you're dealing with an online DAW. You have, in musical terms, a yawning gap between what you do and what you hear. So if you're trying to play a virtual instrument on a piano online over the internet, you're going to encounter a lot of delay. So you can go ting ting stink, bing 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 bing, and then it plays like seconds later. Because it's not really about that. It's not about live stuff. Bandlab is very much about you writing in MIDI lines and then that playing back through stuff. Or it's about you recording the audio of your guitar on your computer, uploading it to Bandlab, and then applying effects to it. Not playing through effects, not using vocal effects live. You record your vocal into Bandlab and then you add your effects. So it has this kind of offline processing thing going on. And that's not great. I mean, all of the facilities that it offers you, all of the collaboration and the potential is great. But you just have to be aware that it's not designed for live stuff. You record your live stuff into it, but you can't monitor, you can't process, you can't play instruments in real time very easily. And so for that reason, it can't be very high up the list. However, it's there, it's free, and anyone can use it, and its collaboration features are quite phenomenal. So, you know, pros and cons. Soundbridge, it's quite a curious one. It used to be kind of all completely free, I think. But more recently they seem to have really laid it on thick about getting the full paid version, which is fine. You know, everyone needs to get paid for what they do, but there is still a free version and it's still very good. The main pluses, I think, of Soundbridge is that it has a really simple, minimalist, easy to understand front end. It gives you a range of tools for recording MIDI and audio, and it comes with a bunch of effects and virtual instruments, a really nice drum sampler and other bits and pieces to get you going. It looks similar to a lot of other DAWs and offers all the same tools essentially for free. It leans quite heavily into its ease of use. I think it also is very touchable, so it has a very open interface that you can touch all the controls and move everything about by hand. It has a great drum machine and other bits and pieces built in, and it does support VST plugins, which again is that kind of vital thing, I think, that a few other DAWs are starting to miss out on now in not having that in their free version. It is restricted to about 10 tracks, I think, and it's also quite a pain to register and get into in the first place. They seem to put up so many roadblocks to you actually getting to the piece of software that you kind of almost want to give up as you get halfway there. However, it's a very capable, very enabling DAW which will give you an opportunity to make music for free, use your own plugins, use virtual instruments in a way that's easy to understand, easy to get into, and I think that is probably its biggest strength. And lastly, we have GarageBand, or GarageBand, depending on who you are, where you come from. This is Apple's ridiculously good free DAW that just happens to ship with itself. It comes on your MacBook, it comes on your iPad, for free. It's just there, and it's far too good to be free. And it's one of those things where you go, oh well, it's a shame that it's Apple only, because it's decent. It's decent. It's a piece of recording software. It lets you record from microphones and guitars. It's got amp modeling in there. It's got virtual instruments all in there ready to play. The way that it works is simple. It addresses everything. It labels tracks for you. It allows you to sample directly in. I mean, anyone can use it. That's the beautiful thing about GarageBand, is that you don't have to know anything. You can just turn it on, and after 5 minutes, you're kind of making music. You're recording stuff and you're messing around with it. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's such an enabling piece of software. It allows anyone with no knowledge at all just to turn on and start getting stuck in. And that's just brilliant. It continues to be one of the easiest and one of the nicest looking free DAWs out there. It doesn't support VST instruments or other bits and pieces. It just is what it is. Self-contained, ready to go. 32 tracks, I think it is, of recording and MIDI editing, and you can make tracks on it. I've often seen this as the main piece of software people use in music technology courses, which I find quite hilarious. Really, because I've often seen these big suites of Apple Macs and iMacs, and they're all just running GarageBand. I mean, the hardware costs thousands and the software costs nothing at all. It is, I suppose, a gateway to Logic Pro, which is their more grown-up DAW, and that's no bad thing, because that's an excellent piece of software. But if you just want to make music for free and you know nothing, then GarageBand is for you. So there you go. I hope that was useful. That's my take on the best DAWs of the summer 2024, let's say. I'll update it in 6 months, do another video, and we'll see where we are. But things are always changing. There's always new things coming along and things dropping away. So who knows what we'll find in another 6 months' time. The point is that you can start making music now, on your computer now. And all you need to invest is a bit of your time to learn a piece of software. And there's lots of avenues to go down to if you want to expand with more instruments, more plugins, more features, more facilities that are going to help you realize your creative endeavors. So that's the best free DAWs. My name's Robin. This is Molten Music Technology. Do feel free to subscribe. Please come and join us on Patreon in order to support the channel, and I'll keep on doing fabulous content like this. And in the meantime, go make some tunes.